Welcome back to the program. I am going to cover, I don't even know how many things. Honestly, there is so much stuff going on right now. Most of it's just incredibly good news. Some of it's a little off, but I think in the end will be good news. But this is literally going to be like, I don't even know how long this video is going to be, but I'm probably going to cover like 20, 25, 30 different things. But before I even get into anything, we really need to give praise to the good Lord above and praise to God Almighty for this incredible victory. And what I want to start the show with is something that I've actually never done before, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's something that absolutely needs to be heard, okay? This is a bunch of Trump supporters, a massive crowd of Trump supporters giving glory to God as they are patriotically singing "How Great Thou Art" after President Trump's victory. Is that just beautiful? I wanted to start with that because all of this would not be possible without God's great blessing over America, over President Trump, for saving his life so that he could save America. And I think it's important for us to start with that over anything else. Now, we're going to start first and foremost with, I guess you could call it the bad news, right? Obviously, John Thune, for now, is going to be the Senate Majority Leader. Now, we know he's a rhino. We know he's a Trump hater. We know he's somebody that has said horrible things about President Trump, doesn't support the agenda. However, at this point right now, it's a battle that we did not win, but in the end we will, okay? And I think what's important is for us to understand that with all the incredibly great news that is happening out there, if we get 80 to 90% of everything we want, then that's a victory, okay? Because it's a hell of a lot more than what we would have had in the past. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to put pressure on John Thune to make sure that he does the right thing, because we will. But also, there are contingency plans that could possibly remove him if he is not Make America Great Again and America First, and brings forward President Trump's agenda through the Senate, confirmation of judges, confirmation of cabinet positions, all of that. He has signaled that he will be doing that. Let me go through and give you the audio on that. It's very, very brief. Let me see if I can find it here. But he has signaled that he understands the situation. So here is John Thune when asked about Trump's nominees and what he plans on doing.
When it comes to choosing nominees who will pass Senate confirmation?
Well, as you know, the Senate has a advise and consent role under the Constitution, so we will do everything we can to process his noms quickly, get them installed in their position so they can begin to implement his agenda.
Get them installed quickly so that they can be put in position to install President Trump's agenda quickly, end quote. So that's a positive, okay? Now, the other thing that I want to point out is something that Tommy Tuberville, who is a senator from, I believe, is it Alabama or Mississippi? I think it's Alabama. Let's see here. I could be wrong on that. But what he said was interesting when asked about the Senate race and the Senate majority. And he said, Tuberville says that Thune will likely be the Senate majority leader in the U.S. Senate. However, he also then added, President Trump will actually be the leader of the U.S. Senate and will dictate policy. Now, that's pretty interesting to hear coming from a member of the Senate, because what that shows is that Thune might just be a yes man. He might just be someone that's in the position and he's going to do what President Trump tells him to do. And if that's the case, well, then that's great. It doesn't matter who the Senate Majority Leader is, as long as they are enacting the America First agenda. So I wouldn't lose a ton of sleep yet over the fact that Thune is the Senate Majority Leader. There's also this, and again, this is something that Charlie Kirk was talking to Glenn Beck about, and Charlie Kirk got this idea from one of the most brilliant, articulate, and historically accurate senators that we've seen in a very long time, and that is Utah Senator Mike Lee. Mike Lee is somebody that is very smart, knows the Constitution, and more importantly, knows historical precedent. And what he has said could be used to actually have J.D. Vance be the Senate Majority Leader. So what I want to do is I want to play you this because I think this is pretty amazing stuff. Let me find it. It's right here. I told you there's a lot of stuff here. Here we go. So this is Charlie Kirk calling in to Glenn Beck's show and discussing what could possibly happen and how there is legal precedent and historical precedent to actually put J.D. Vance in as not just vice president, but as Senate Majority Leader, especially if Thune decides to go rogue and become a rhino again. So listen closely to this.
The Senate, as we're talking about Mike Lee, I don't know if you saw this, but Thune just came out yesterday and said, for his own good, Donald Trump should stay out of this Senate race. And I thought, you just signed your own death warrant. But Cornyn and Thune, that is business as usual. If we don't have somebody who, do you think he'll put his thumb on the scale and come out for Rick Scott?
Let me tell you the Charlie Kirk plan, which is now going public. Thune or Cornyn is almost assuredly going to win. John Adams presided over the U.S. Senate as Senate Majority Leader 200 years ago as Vice President of the United States. So I think J.D. Vance should.
John Adams presided over 200 years ago as Senate Majority Leader. Here, I'll rewind it a little bit because this is an important part that Charlie's talking about. Listen.
John Adams presided over the U.S. Senate as Senate Majority Leader 200 years ago as Vice President of the United States. So I think J.D. Vance should. I think J.D. Vance should be President of the Senate and become Senate Majority Leader. And he would.
I am in love with that. I am in love with that. I said that just the other day. I didn't know if anybody, if that, it was possible with J.D., but he would be fantastic.
I got to give credit. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Does he get the access to the Senate GOP funds?
Huh? Well, yes. So let me build out how this would work. So essentially, the Constitution says that the Vice President is the President of the Senate, highest ranking officer, and when he sits in the chair, that's the way it is. There is no question about it. This is, again, Senator Mike Lee came up with this. This is a 1 a.m. phone call from Senator Mike Lee last night, and he had me at hello. And so, again,
He has me at hello every time.
yeah. Now, mind you, JD would have to really want it in the sense that it would be a ton of monotonous. He had to sit in the chair and listen to procedure stuff, and he'd have to go to the Senate lunches. However, he would basically be able to be the president of the Senate and set the entire tone of legislative agenda. Now, as far as the political stuff, that yes and no. I mean, he could create his own. He could do, they could hand him the Senate Leadership Fund. But basically, if you're the president of the Senate, then everyone looks to you, and then you get to determine who's on committees, which, of course, there's a lot of power in that. Now, mind you, this would completely change the game in Washington. I have not had anybody tell me it's a bad idea. Now, mind you, John C. Calhoun tried to exhibit his power back, as you know, in the 1950s as president of the Senate and was actually shot down. So there has been some trimming of the power of the president of the Senate. However, in the Senate rules, it says the highest ranking officer is, and that's the president of the Senate, which is the VP. This power has never been exercised, tried, or tested. Considering the mandate and considering that we only have a Senate majority thanks to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, it's not as if like the Senate candidates did better than Trump. The opposite is truth, actually. Trump did way better, and they're only there because of coattails of Trump. From Sheehy to Moreno to McCormick, that's your majority right there. So that's my push. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I would love to see J.D. Vance become Senate Majority Leader.
So again, that is another option that possibly could happen. Now, granted, it would obviously be challenged in court, and it would end up at the Supreme Court. But we do have some originalist judges on the Supreme Court. How many? Well, certainly not enough, but we have some. We've got Neil Gorsuch, we've got Samuel Alito, we've got Clarence Thomas, and perhaps maybe some of the newer ones, Kavanaugh and the others. But we'd have to see what would happen. Again, that's more of a long shot. I think it would be best that we make sure that we do two things. Number one, we get the leaked list of people who voted against Rick Scott, and we make sure that all of those people are known publicly, number one. And number two, that it doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter how conservative they may be, they need to be primaried in 2026 or 2028 when their term is up. Because there has to be accountability. We can no longer go back to the old way of doing things. And so I think that that's important. Now, there's another website that has come up, and I love this website. I truly think this is an incredible, incredible website. And the website, let me see here, is called rhinowatch.com. And let me make sure it's not rhinowatch.org, but I believe it's rhinowatch.com. Is that what it is? It is. rhinowatch.com. So, this is an important website that everybody's going to need to use because this is going to track every single person that has done anything that is pro-establishment, pro-Ukraine, pro-open borders, anti-Trump, whatever you want to call it. It's all going to be on Rhino, RINOWATCH.com, rhinowatch.com. Bookmark that, okay? But let's move on to some real positive stuff here, okay? Because, again, we don't want to be negative. There's a lot of great stuff going on. So these are some of the choices so far, which, again, they're fire, most of them, okay? You got Elon and, of course, Vivek. So obviously the Senate seat in Ohio will be filled by somebody else. Who, I don't know, maybe Josh Mandel, maybe the Attorney General for Ohio could be a possibility. He's a good election integrity guy, America First. So there's going to be somebody that's going to, LaRose is his name. He has fought against election fraud quite a bit. So he would be good to put in that position. The Attorney General, Yeast, would be another one, or Yost, I think his name is. I think it's Yost. He would be another one that would be a good person. Maybe Josh Mandel, who has run in the past. So there are some good names out there that could fill that role. But anyway, so you've got Elon and Vivek, right? Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. Tom Homan, come on, the greatest pick ever, right, for Border Czar. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense. I like this pick. Of course, the establishment doesn't like this pick. They're already poo-pooing it. They're saying, oh, he doesn't have the experience. But you know what? He served multiple tours. He's got accolades. He's got medals. He served his country. He's smart. He's effective. He's a good leader. He ran a Veterans Affairs organization. He does have experience. He doesn't have Washington experience. And that's what these fat cat rhino establishment idiots see as experience. I think he would be fantastic. Why? Because number one, he's not woke. Number two, he wants to fire all the generals that are woke. And also, he's coming from the outside. We need fresh eyes, fresh blood that can look at the military in a non-woke way and what's best for the soldiers, what's best for our fighting forces, what's best to make sure that we are equipped to handle threats from China and other countries in the future. So I actually love this. Not to mention he's an effective communicator. He was on Fox News. He was on Fox Business. He's written books. So he's someone that is an effective communicator, and he's America first. So I love this Pete Hegseth choice. Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. This one blew my mind. I did not see this happening, okay? I was thinking maybe Ken Paxton, Mike Davis, who I really like. Jeffrey Clark was mentioned. There was a couple others. I mean, you could have some outside, dark, whatever they call them, dark horses. Judge Denny Impero, Rudy Giuliani. I mean, there was a lot to choose from. And he chose Matt Gaetz, which I think is really interesting because Matt Gaetz has been such a defender of President Trump. But not just that. I mean, we've seen all the videos, right? Obviously, because we weren't in power and couldn't do anything about it, it was nothing but clicks and mental masturbation. But in reality, he was laying down, the blueprint, the foundation for a potential job, because he is an attorney, don't forget, in the Department of Justice. So I really like this Matt Gaetz, outside the box type of thinking, young guy, 40 years old, whatever he might be. So I think he's going to be phenomenal, and he's going to be brutal. He's going to be brutal going after these people because you can see him in the Senate and in the House hearings and how brutal he went after Lloyd Austin and Maoist Milley and so many others. He wasn't afraid of these people. So I think this is a great, 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 great pick. Now, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. Look, one thing I will say, and maybe this is not the right thing to say, but one of the things that I have a problem with as the Secretary of State, being Marco Rubio, is something he can't help. And you may think I'm crazy for saying this. He's very short. They lie and they say he's 5'8", 5'9". He's 5'5", 5'6". Now, he can't help that, and I'm not faulting him for that. But stature is a major, major plus when you're talking to other world leaders and or your equivalent from other countries. And if those other countries' equivalents are towering over your Secretary of State, well, then that can portray potential weakness. As far as everything else, Rubio has been around since 2014. He came to be during the Tea Party revolution of 2014 when the House came in. Ted Cruz came in at that point. Marco Rubio came in at that point. A whole bunch of others came in at that point. Is he a rhino? Somewhat. But if you look at his voting record, it's been pretty decent, pretty solid for the most part. He's on the intelligence committees and things like that. So, look, we're not going to know why all these decisions were made. These are decisions that are made by Trump and his transition team. So we just have to, hope that he does a great job. It wouldn't have been my first choice, but whatever. I'm not picking them. Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. Now, this is interesting. Former Democrat, right? Now Republican. Someone with a lot of military experience, but also someone that has been anti-war. And again, you would think that from a Democrat standpoint, anti-war is how they used to be, right? Now it's flipped, and Republicans are the ones that aren't necessarily anti-war, but they don't want to get into quagmires. They don't want to get into nation building. They don't want to get into all of these outside wars like Afghanistan and Russia and Ukraine and all this other stuff. That's all been the Democrats. And so she has seen the light. She's come over to our side. And the Director of National Intelligence is a pretty big part and pretty big decision here for President Trump, because if you look, let me see if I have the info here on that. Give me 1 second. So the Director of National Intelligence is not directly over the FBI and the CIA and some of these other departments and the Department of Justice and stuff like that. But they do coordinate, number one, with all of those agencies, and they do have an oversight role within the U.S. intelligence community. So the CIA, for instance, is part of that intelligence community, and they operate underneath the Director of National Intelligence. So again, it's a pretty big position to be in, because as the director, you are directing oversight of all of these different entities and agencies of these letter alphabets in the government and the intel community. So it's a pretty big job. It is. It's a really big job. So we'll see how she does. I think she'll do good, because again, she doesn't want to get us into endless wars and things like that. So I think she's going to do a good job. Elise Stefanik, U.S. ambassador. I mean, that's good. That's bad. It doesn't really matter. I mean, she's been a good stalwart. She's been someone that has defended President Trump on television and radio and all throughout the last, couple of years. So she has been MAGA, America First in that respect. Her voting record is a little suspect. When she was a member of Congress, she's definitely more rhino than anything else. But she's now going to be at the United Nations, so I'm not sure that that matters as much. Now, the next one down the line was John Ratcliffe. Now, John Ratcliffe used to be President Trump's Director of National Intelligence. He's now going to be the CIA Director. I thought maybe that would have gone to Kash Patel, but it seems as though, at least right now, President Trump hasn't said anything, but Bannon has said things and some others have said things close to Trump that they're saving him for FBI director when they fire Chris Wray. And he's already come out and said that he wants to arrest people, he wants to indict people, he's going to fire everybody in management and all that. So I think the FBI director likely might be Kash Patel, but we'll see what happens. Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security Secretary. Look, in my book, In Preserving Liberty, I talk about getting rid of the Department of Homeland Security. I actually say that we ought to abolish it. So what do I feel about this? I mean, I don't like the Department of Homeland Security. I never have. I think it's a unnecessary, big government bloated program. So with that being said, Kristi Noem, I don't know. I mean, she's now in charge of like 17 agencies here. And so as long as she's a Trump loyalist, which I think she is, I don't know. I think she did a pretty good job cleaning up South Dakota there for a while. She's had her issues. She's been a little soft on the gender stuff and some other things like that. But we'll see what happens. Personally, I would love to see President Trump say that, DOGE or whatever, the Department of Oversight and government efficiency, they ought to come out and say, we're going to close down DHS. That's what they ought to do, because we don't need it, okay? Get rid of it. It's the fourth largest entity of the United States government. It's been used to go after Americans. It has been used to open up the borders. It's been a disaster. Shut it down. Who else? Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff. This is fine because, again, she understands where we're at. She understands there's not 4 years to fundamentally transform our government and the relationship of our government with the people. She understands it's about 2 years. So I think that She helped him win. She was the campaign manager. So I think she deserves that spot. Typically, that's what happens when a president wins. They usually take their campaign manager and make him chief of staff. So there's really nothing surprising about that. The deputy chiefs of staff is interesting. There's a bunch of them. You've got Dan Scavino. Dan Scavino has been with Trump since the beginning, okay? Many, many years, 2016, even before that even. He's the deputy chief of staff. Stephen Miller is another one from America First Legal. Brilliant legal mind. I thought maybe he would have been chief White House counsel, but instead he is deputy chief of staff for policy with a special concentration on homeland security. And so that's interesting because he's always been anti-illegal immigration and all that. So that's great. Then there's James Blair, Deputy Chief of Staff for Legislative, Political, and Public Affairs, been with Trump for a bit. And then there's Taylor Badowich, Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications and Personnel. I don't know too much about him. Lee Zeldin, the Environmental Protection Agency Director. I don't know. That one I didn't see happening either, but hopefully he'll do a good job. Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor. I could definitely see why he did that. You know, Green Beret, tough as nails. I think he would be great. William Joseph McKinley, White House is the White House Chief Counsel. He's been with him for a long time. Mike Huckabee, United Nations Ambassador to Israel. I love this pick. He's been very pro-Israel. I don't believe he believes in giving up more of Israel's land in a two-state solution garbage. So I really like the fact that we put an evangelical Christian in that position. That's wonderful. And then Steve Witkoff, Special Envoy to the Middle East. Now, we haven't heard yet about RFK Jr. We don't know where he's going to be. I've said this before. I think he would be best at NIAID. That's the National Institute of Infectious Diseases, I think is what it stands for. Here, I'll look it up real quick. It's all over my book. You know why I know that? And why I know it's over NIH? Because when I was doing the book and I kept using NIH, I kept getting corrected by the editor saying, no. Fauci is NIH, but NIAID is over Fauci, and NIAID is over the umbrella organizations underneath. So I had to kind of learn that the hard way. But NIAID stands for the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. In my opinion, I think that RFK Jr. would be perfect in that position. Okay? And the reason is because how many different organizations are under that. I mean, it's unbelievable when you look at it and you see all of these different things. So you have the Office of the Director, and then underneath that, you have all of these different organizations. Let me see if I can find the list. That's not a good list. Let's find a better list here. And there's a lot of them. There's a ton of them. So let's see here. Here we go. I think this is it. Is this it? Or am I reading the same thing again? Nope, I'm reading the same thing again. Here, I'll find it. I'll find it in 2 seconds here. Okay, so while I'm looking for that, I think that he would be best in that position. And then I think the other position would be the National Institute of Health. There we go. Umbrella agencies. Let me write this down here. Agencies. Here we go. Okay. So they are in charge of quite a bit, actually. So NIAID has the Division of Allergy, Immunology, and Transportation, which is called DAIT. Then they also have other partnerships with other organizations. Let me see here. Here we go. Global Health Security Organization. They oversee the people that would go to the World Health Organization. They oversee the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. They oversee the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, which is known as BARDA. They also have the Office of Global Health underneath them. They are also DARPA. Okay, that's that secret agency that works on all kinds of crazy things behind the scenes. So the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, key programs and initiatives. U.S. Food and Drug Administration is under NIAID. The National Science Foundation is under NIAID. The National Center for Biotechnology and Information, so on and so forth, including, of course, the National Institute of Health, which is what Dr. Fauci ran for 50 years or whatever it was. So if he wants to take out 600 employees, how about putting him in front of NIAID as the director with umpteen different organizations underneath him? He can take that 600 people firing and kick it up to 6,000 or 60,000, okay? That's what he could do. So I'd like to see him in that position. I have heard that Dr. Ben Carson and him are both being considered for Health and Human Services Secretary. In that situation, I would much rather see Dr. Ben Carson in that position because I think it fits him being a brain surgeon and a neurosurgeon and all that. Possibly Surgeon General, maybe, or it could have been Trump's doctor that could be in that position as well. But the bottom line is we are winning. We are winning big. We are appointing people into positions of power that are going to be effective. And I think that's really what people need to concentrate on. The fact is that we are doing things that are going to make this country great. And again, like I said, we're not going to win every single one of these battles, or we're not going to have every single person that we want in these different positions. But we are moving in the right direction. And if we get the majority of it, we're still going to be successful. Right now, it's 219 to 211. It's an 8-seat lead for Republicans. There are 5 races left to be considered here, to be settled. I believe it's going to be a 3-2 split, meaning Democrats will pick up 2 of them. Republicans should pick up 3 of them because they're leading in 3 of them. And that is once again why I said, if that's the case, 2021, 22 for Republicans. And if they're at 211 now and they pick up 2 more, 212, 213. I do still believe it's going to be 222 to 213. I could be wrong. Look, a lot of these races are in California, and they haven't been called yet. So you got to wonder why. Voter fraud, right? Obviously. And I want to point out this real quick, because this is important. After President Trump won in 2016, he decided at that point that he wanted a voter fraud like coalition, like a panel of people, a committee, whatever, to look into voter fraud. And he was immediately shot down, not just by the left saying that there's no voter fraud, but even people around him and his cabinet were telling him, no, it's a bad idea. Well, here we are in 2024, and I can assure you that 4 Senate races were stolen. Arizona's, at least so far. Sam Brown in Nevada's. What's the other one? The Wisconsin, Eric Hove race right there. And Mike Rogers in Michigan, okay? So if we're at 53, I think we're at 52, but let's say we're at 53 right now, right? That's what? That's 54, 55, 56, 57. You add JD's vote on top of that, you've got 58 votes in the Senate if we didn't have 4 seats being stolen. So President Trump needs to open up a Department of Election Integrity. This has got to be a must. Forget Doge and government efficiency. All that's wonderful. That's all great. We need a Department of Election Integrity. And you could have so many different people run that. You could have the folks from True the Vote run it. Catherine Engelbrecht, Greg Phillips, who I've interviewed. Catherine I've interviewed years ago. Seth Ketchelman would be another great one. Jovan Pulitzer could be part of that. Mike Lindell could be part of that. Russell Ramsland from Allied Security could be part of that. Jay Valentine. from StopBogusBallots.com and all the work he's done in Wisconsin. That's what we need. We need a Department of Election Integrity. We ought to shut down DHS, take all the money and all that we're saving, and start the Department of Election Integrity. Because until we get our elections 100%, right now they're about 70, maybe 65, 70. They were just enough to win back power. But imagine if we had real election integrity. Every single state that Heels Up Headboard Harris won did not require voter ID. Let that sink in. Every single state that she quote-unquote won did not require voter ID. Imagine the SAVE Act. Imagine 50 states, mandatory voter ID. Imagine getting rid of early voting. Imagine getting rid of mail-in voting. Imagine getting rid of ballot harvesting. Imagine getting rid of sandbagging, where everyone has to report right away on election night at midnight. Why can't we do what Florida does? Why can't we do what so many other states do? We can. And that has to be a focus. I will be reaching out to people close to Trump to tell him that this is an entity of the government. I'm not a big government guy. I don't believe in expanding government. But when it comes to saving the country and having election integrity, which is the bedrock of our republic, you're damn straight. I will be calling for the Department of Election Integrity because we have to have it. So anyway, wanted to just kind of cover a lot. I did cover a lot. I kind of went by the seat of my pants. FBI seizes Polymarket CEO's phone and electronics this morning at 6 a.m. They did a raid on the guy, the young 26-year-old millennial or Gen Z guy who created Polymarkets, where it predicted that President Trump was going to win the election. Well, the FBI, in a last gasp effort to show that they have any balls or strength whatsoever at all, before they're all in jail, okay, getting sodomized by Bubba, which is what I'm hoping for, they did one last thing. They went out there and they went after the CEO of Polymarkets. They did that this morning. What's his name? Shane Copland, the CEO. They went in, they took his phone and his electronics early Wednesday morning, just a week after the election betting platform successfully predicted President-elect Donald Trump's win. So one last gasp effort to show their strength. But you know what? They're all going to end up, hopefully, in jail. Every single one of these scumbag FBI assholes and CIA dirtbags that are in the positions of leadership and power, you all better run to a country that doesn't have extradition, because you're all going to rot in a fucking jail cell, okay? And you deserve it. You deserve to have your lives in tatters. You deserve to have everything ripped away from you. We ought to take your salaries, every single one of your salaries, take your pensions from you, leave you homeless and penniless, and give all of your salaries, all of your money, all of the SES, all of the administrative state people, take all of their money, all of it, confiscate all of it, and give it to every single January 6th political peaceful protester. Give them all their money. Make their lives whole once again. And yes, President Trump, please pardon them all. Every single one of them. Because none of them, as far as I'm concerned, are guilty of anything. Because all of this was set up by the FBI, the CIA, and of course, the Capitol Police, the Democrats, and yes, the Rhino establishment Republicans. That's the truth. The truth is going to come out, and I am not tired of winning. I can't wait to continue to win. God bless President Trump. God bless America, and let's keep fighting. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.